72 hours ago, I'm from Portland, Oregon. 72 hours ago, I was watching my youngest son play baseball in a snowstorm. So it's a treat to be here, and this place is awesome. So also, we're here to talk about compliance, and there was a question earlier about the specific compliance. I want to talk to you about an overall software compliance management system and the use of technology addressing all of your compliance requirements. So not any one particular area, F&I, employment practice, safety, OSHA, but all of those areas and how you can use a process and a system and a discipline to really kind of figure out this whole difficult area of compliance. And I know it's not necessarily people's favorite topic, but I know it's an important topic. I think we all think it's an important topic. And for those dealerships that do compliance well, it's a competitive advantage. For those that do it poorly, it creates really undue risk and exposure to the business. And so there's a real value in addressing compliance in a fashion that can be very effective. And right now, many companies are doing it somewhat piecemeal, manual, paper-based, or not at all. And that's a lot of exposure to the business. So I really want to talk about how you can bring technology and solutions that are out there to really make compliance relatively easy and very effective and very cost-effective. Let's talk a little bit about the problems first. I mean, everybody knows there's a lot of regulation, sort of endless regulation, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And whether it's ERISA or FCRA or COBRA, WARN, I mean, there's a zillion acronyms of all sorts of different compliance and regulatory requirements that we have, both federal, state, those sort of things. And it's not going to go away. I mean, just in the last year or so, we've seen car buyer Bill of Rights come on board, which is a huge. It's in California predominantly right now, but it's spreading to other states. We've seen adverse action requirements. Now we're seeing red flag requirements that are going to be mandatory November 1st. So it's never ending. And so the real key is to not worry about what's coming and have to recreate the wheel. The key is to have a platform in place, a process in place, where it doesn't matter what the new topic is. You just find the information, but you use the same way to manage that. And again, software can really drive that. Technology can really help drive that. So you're taking all the recreation out of it, and you're just trying to focus on what the issue, what the information needs to be, who needs to get it, those sort of things. Really, this industry is really kind of a target for plaintiff attorneys. There's a lot of employment issues, there's a lot of consumer issues, a lot of regulatory issues that need to be dealt with. And the unfortunate reality is there's a lot of focus on the auto space as a relatively easy target. I've heard a number of times people talk about it's the next tobacco industry in terms of plaintiffs specializing in suing dealers. And so we want to have a good defense for that, and that's part of the value of doing this right. So my wife and I, a couple months ago, were in Palm Springs, once again looking for heat. And as we were driving to the airport, there was a billboard that advertised for, have you had a bad experience at a car dealership? If so, call 1-800-whatever. So I mean, there are specific advertisements going after these kind of issues. And then just in general, there are just business risk, but in dealerships, there's a lot of dynamics going on in a dealership, more so than almost any business we're associated with. We specialize in dealership compliance, but we're very familiar with a lot of other industries, and I think the dealership space is one of the most interesting, dynamic, complicated industries out there. And in fact, that's why there's a huge need for compliance, because there's a lot of compliance requirements and relatively limited capabilities, if you will, at this point. And so when you look at all the things that we're trying to address, just make sure that whatever you're using, and again, technology is a great way to leverage it, whatever you're using is as relentless as all those risks are. So in essence, what that's saying, if you can prove that you're doing everything reasonably possible to do the right thing, create a compliant culture, you should be given leniency. And that's a very strong, defensible position to be in. Absent that, where you can't demonstrate those sort of things, it's easy to poke holes. You take the right content and distribute it automatically every time effectively to these people and monitor and track how that's being used. Training and assessment. I mean, everybody knows training is very important, but it's also very important to understand whether people learn things and then document whether they learn something. So again, the process should include not only distributing and taking trainings, but also documenting the fact that somebody learned what the topic was about and that you can demonstrate that it's been done. Consistent enforcement, doesn't matter who you are, where you are, if you're in the same role, you'll get the same information, the same time, the same way as somebody else will get it in your organization. So again, it's intended to get to every employee and each common level or group in that organization. And when we're talking to people, we often ask them, well, what's your compliance stats? I mean, do you know what would you say your compliance stats are in your audit? Which is a typical response, because unless you measure it, you just don't know. But the typical guess is somewhere between 30 and 70%. But again, they don't know. Well, with a process like this, it can tell you exactly where you are, what you need to work on, what's working well, so don't keep throwing dollars and money and people at what's working. Let's focus on the things that create risk in your organization, and that's where we're going to spend our time and effort. What you really want to promote in compliance management and risk management is individual policies are understood and signed off on. Individual trainings are understood and documented and taken, and you can prove that people learned it. Individual incidences, like a harassment report or an injury report form or a vacation request, are run through an automated process so they don't get lost, they don't get misplaced, they're completed, and if they're not being completed, you can identify who has it and where it stands so that you can resolve that issue. In terms of a web-based system, this is exactly what most of the capabilities are out there. Ours certainly is a web-based system, ASP.NET type of an approach, SaaS model. Most of them are. I mean, there's also some LMSs out there, which are purely training providers that you can talk to. But there's a lot of compliance activities that are leveraging technology right now. The SaaS advantages, as you folks probably know, there's no hardware, no software to purchase or maintain, so it's outsourced to a third party, if you will, which is a real benefit because the reality is it's probably not most dealerships' core competency to do those sort of things. There's automatic updates, the technology and the content included. So instead of having to send something to you to upload, it's done automatically. Every time there's a new version created, that automatically ripples to you in the dead of the night. So that's the benefit of the SaaS model. So you can know exactly where you stand with every piece of content that has been delivered to all of your employees. You know exactly what the status is. And so there's a couple ways to use this information. One is if it's not 90% or better, you know that you have some work to do. But once you get up to those levels, you can start dishing out more and additional areas to focus on. So we don't try to boil the ocean, but you want to just consistently have processes in place and deliver programs to the people so that over time you have the coverage that we all want. So it's a very effective tool to be able to know exactly where you stand at a point in time. Content is extremely important. In fact, in some respects, you could argue that it maybe is the most important part of this because the technology is great and that really facilitates everything, but without good content, there's not much there to focus on. So what you really want to do is make sure that the content that you're either already using, which can be transferred typically to these sort of systems, you can take your handbook that's sitting on the shelf, get it digitized, put it in electronic format, and get that onto the system. You can work with your current providers to take the programs and the information and the trainings that you're already getting from them and get it onto this system. If that's not enough, or if there's other things you need, you can also pull from a library, if you will, from many of the experts in the industry. The theory is it's all done in the concept of the good faith. You really want to be able to take all the key areas, give it to the right people, make sure it's being done, monitor it. By the way, these kind of systems, this system, if somebody doesn't do something, the system will automatically remind them. So when in their inbox, if there's a policy or a training or a form that they need to be doing something with, if they haven't done that within a week, the system will automatically remind them that they have a stale to do. It'll also remind their supervisors. So there's a gentle nag factor, if you will. So there's constant assistance through the technology to make sure that things happen.